Okay, so I've had a bit of a think about this, guys. I think before we do any kind of more sculpting, I'm just going to rethink the size of these kind of floppy ears a little bit. I'm just going to reduce how much they overhang, just something like that is a bit more manageable. Again, kind of, spending a long time on them and all this, you can kind of get away with it a little bit. You guys probably noticed it like a sore thumb in the videos, but for myself working on it for so long, I didn't actually notice that. Oh yeah, that's fine, don't worry about it. It's going to be perfectly good. So obviously it wasn't. So I'm glad it's sort of fixed now. Anyway, let's talk about a boot detail for now. Now we've got a lot of good formations in here. We don't really want to sort of what can we say, mess with these too much. We just want to add to them. Now it's easier said than done. Okay, so we can have a look at a couple of different references here. We might go for something like this time. Okay, so we want to kind of blend what we can see here with what we've got here. Okay, now that might sound a bit tricky, but let me show you an example of what I potentially mean. Let's solo it out for now. Okay, so we can see that this fabric edge here has kind of got a kind of a deepish sort of fold. In fact, if we kind of look for one in our shoe here, I immediately think about this part here. So what I can do there is I come in with a small standard brush and I just kind of paint a little kind of roof almost with it, okay? And on the inside, we might want to go to subdivision level 3 for this. I just want to kind of build a little kind of crevice in there. Something like that. Okay, so it gets a bit tighter and thinner as it goes towards the top, but we don't want it so pronounced. Okay, I sort of feel like that's almost a bit too much. We can smooth it out a little bit more. Okay, but this is probably something that we're just going to be very, very particular about. For example, perhaps here, for instance. Okay, maybe something there, or perhaps something here. We probably don't want to carry the effect around too much, just in certain areas. Maybe around here, for instance, we'll kind of exaggerate this area there, maybe underneath here a little bit. Yeah, okay, just something like that, just to sort of play with some of the finer folds. And of course we can do smaller folds, like something just kind of a crease across here like that. A bit of a crease that kind of scatters across the shoe a little bit. That's just a kind of crease mark, and we're going to have quite a few over where the ankle bend is. So we can see here, similar thing. We might have one that's sort of a bit bigger, sort of something like this. Maybe it kind of creases around the bottom there a little bit. Okay, so we can add sort of finer folds in there, but this is all dependent on one very basic thing. How thick is your fabric? Not how deep is your love, but how thick is your fabric. Okay, so how thick is your leather going to be? The thicker the leather, obviously, the more kind of, the less creases you'll get, the more smoother surface it will generally be. So you can see as I'm adding all this in here, I'm making it look a little bit more fabricy, a bit more leather-like. But you can see with the actual leather boots here, we don't get this so much. Okay, now I just wanted to show you them as an idea, for instance. No, I'm not really going to go through with many of these, so I'm just going to go trim dynamic and get rid of basically what I've just done there. I might keep a little bit of it in, like for there, for instance. Okay, because my boots are a little bit more focused on kind of tougher, thicker leather. Okay, so it's not going to be a lot of these kind of very delicate sort of folds in there. Okay, but what I am going to have is I am going to have a few more defined damp standard brushes, and the trick here is to go very low intensity, and we'll just come in maybe the lower subdivision level yet again, and we'll just try and outline and highlight some more of these creases here, these folds. And I know this is like a broken record, but it is just rinse and repeat until you get the right effect. Okay, and hopefully I'm explaining the process well enough that you can sort of see what I'm trying to do each time we go back in for more folds. Okay, so again, now just trying to create the shapes that we can see in the reference. Okay, and if you need to go up an extra level, go up an extra level. That's perfectly fine now, because we're getting towards the making the final folds on the boot here. Okay, there's no reason why you couldn't have small folds like I've just created there. You can. That's fine. There are going to be some sharp creases and folds, so don't feel like you can't add any of them in. You absolutely can, of course. Okay. And then maybe we can create a sort of cut here. Okay. Just sort of Again, big brush size, just kind of create these more sharper sort of folds. Okay, just in some key areas, so maybe around here. Okay, and you can see the effect that it's having on it there. It's just basically giving a general line to sort of highlight the fold with, and at a higher subdivision level you can see this taking effect much more clearly. Okay, so just bringing it out there, smooth it just a bit. Okay, so I'm kind of going through the line, smoothing it, and then going through it again. I'll do the same for here, so really bring out this sort of crease there. Okay, and do the same here. Maybe just exaggerate that a little bit. Okay, don't forget about the other parts of the boot as well. We've spent a lot of attention and time on the front, which is completely fine. It's certainly perfectly normal, because that's what we're going to see most of the time. Oh, that's at least where the focus of the character will be most of the time. Okay, so I'm just kind of creating some interesting edges more to say than actual folds. Just trying to give a bit of variation to what's on offer here in terms of the different folds. Okay, and let's just do that here. We'll kind of carry that up and over. And now back here we can afford to be a bit more bold as we get to quite a few creases at the back. So maybe we've got quite a few there. Let's carry this big guy all the way up. And we'll just sort of thin him out a bit. Give him an edge. Something like that. Okay, give him some more form back here perhaps. Okay. Crease it back there. This guy, same thing. Let's bring him up. Give him a bit more of a folded sharp edge that kind of just creases as it goes to the back. Be wavy about it as well. Okay, that can be a cool thing to do. Make the folds a bit wavy, because leather like this does tend to wave quite a bit. Okay, you can sort of see what I'm getting at here. I'm almost kind of using a damn standard brush like a standard brush, almost just sort of painting in these very deliberate looking folds. Okay, yeah, I sort of say nearly sort of there. Okay, I like this side looks good. I just want to add a little bit more of the same idea and flair from the other side. So let's add some up here even. And the reason why I'm using the damn standard brush and not the standard brush to sort of build up creases is because the damn standard brush gives a nice sort of flat, straight edged, sharp edge as well. And that's kind of, if you look at any of this part here, that's kind of what the boot and this type of leather more easily creates. It creates these kind of folds that I've got a bit more of a kind of creased edge to them. Like that, for example, looks really nice. If you were to go into standard brush and do that, you get kind of sausage effects, which this type of leather really doesn't play well with. It doesn't really do that. Okay. And I guess I'm somewhat of a boot expert now, because like all my characters have boots. You can just go into my art station and see, like, yeah, every character this guy creates has got boots. I think if you were to tell me, hey, can you create a character without boots, I'd have to think about it a little bit. I think I'd almost sort of say, like, well, are you sure you don't want boots? You know, boots look pretty good. You can do boots. I can make boots for you, no problem. I'd almost kind of upsell you on on Boots being like, hey, you know what? Boots are good. I know you want your characters like going to the beach and would be better off wearing sandals or something like that. But hey, Boots, do the boots. Boots are good for you. You know. Okay, so the only part I'm going to kind of swap back to my standard brush for is this part here. I want to create some folds that kind of droop down. In fact, I'll just swap that out for the clay builder brush. Just want to create some kind of very deep sort of folds here around the back of the heel, because I feel like that's where we're going to get a lot of sort of deeper big folds, like we kind of got around the front almost, but just in a bit of like a zigzag fashion. And if I smooth that out for you, I know this looks awful right now, but just bear with me. Just bear with me. If we get that damn standard brush back out, you can see the front's not affected, but we can just bring that damn standard brush in here and just bring that in. We're sort of what we call it, kind of angling the sort of trajectory of this fold like that almost. Okay, sort of like this. And what I want to do, essentially, I don't want to have thin lines like this. I'm going to use my inflate brush, which is there. I'm just going to inflate this particular part there. That's fine. Inflate that. Inflate this. Now it's a bit too much, I understand, I hear you, don't worry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to subdivision level 2 and I'm just going to squeeze them together. I'm going to use the move brush and I'm going to push them a bit more together. Okay, I'm going to pull this guy out a bit to create quite a bit of variance there. Okay, so what I've got this kind of weird zigzag, and I'm just going to come in with the damn standard brush, quite a small size, quite a strong intensity to what we're used to, and just kind of really put these creases in there. Oops, span my model all the way around. Going to sort of mask this area off, and I'm just going to use the standard brush and paint under here a bit more. So it looks like that fold is actually really over the top of the other, and I'm going to do the same for this one, mask that off and then bring that round. Okay, and what the effect you should get is this kind of really tight looking crease. So if we bring it up to the third subdivision level, you can sort of see, if I bring the damn standard brush in there, just kind of highlight that. Okay, and then of course we're going to have to do our best to sort of stop these looking like chunks, so we're going to have to bring in the damn standard brush and just kind of make these a bit more rigid looking. Okay, make them look a little bit less like a sausage, and we'll swap to our trim dynamic brush in just a sec. But for now, let's just try and sharpen up some of these edges that we've got here. Okay, and what we'll do is let's mask the bottom this time. And in subdivision level 3, we'll pull this guy down. Okay, let's flip the mask. And what we'll do is we'll mask this area there. And you guessed it, we'll sort of, well, let's unmask this area a bit. Let's unmask this area a bit. And we'll bring this up. Okay, so we've got this almost really sort of tight crease fold as the layers of the boot kind of clash around where the heel is. Okay, now I think actually that's probably a bit too excessive. It probably would just be do with just a double one rather than a triple, like 3 layers. So let's just get rid of one, and I'll show you how to do that. We'll use the trim dynamic brush and just smooth that out. Okay, let's use the move topological. We will mask this, just that top layer off. Okay, and it will push this guy up. Oops. Don't worry about the heel too much. If it comes a bit dislodged, just push it back into place. Okay. And then flip the mask. Well, not really. We'll kind of mask that area off there. And then let's pull this one down quite a bit. So big brush, pull it down, smooth out this part here. We don't want this guy anymore. You can use a standard brush and just use the inverse of that if you like, and then use the move topological brush, really bring that down, smooth it out, and then see what you've got. Okay, so you can do something like that. This is a bit too like Donald Duck's beak at the moment, so I'm going to inflate it. And it's a bit too exaggerative, so I'm just going to mask this part off first. And I want to sort of make this a bit more of a gentler slope. Maybe let's use a clay build-up brush. There we go. Okay, and then let's flip the mask. Well, I sort of say let's just mask the bottom off here. And I'd sort of say let's sort of clay build-up brush this area a bit. And then we'll move topological brush that just back in a little bit. It's a bit too out there. Just kind of bring that in a bit. Okay, and obviously you can use your trim dynamic brush to get the final chamfer on that. Okay, so something like that is a bit better than what we had. Okay. Oop, just kind of digging into that area, but we've got to be careful with that. Okay. And then we can do the same for this one as well. Okay, so we started with 3, we've ended up with just 2, because that worked out better. Okay. Right. A couple little more tweaks. Okay. Fabulous. Okay, let's take a look at far away. That worked out quite well. Worked out quite well. I might just do a small little one there. Small one there. And then one more pass with the damn standard brush. Just to kind of sharpen up some of these newly created folds. Okay. And I see a good potential to use a trim dynamic brush there. Shoop. Cool. Okay. Right, I think the only thing I'd like to do now is use the inflate brush trick. We'll just go around and we'll just use the inverse of this and we'll just stipple some areas of the boot a little bit. Okay, just to kind of create an uneven surface, make it a little bit more worn, and you can also use the standard form of it as well, but I mostly use the inverse of it, just to kind of create little pockets of variation here and there. Okay, just around here, just to create sort of like micro detail, I suppose you could call it. Okay. So take a bit of a step back from your model so you can see the overall effect rather than getting lost up close in it. And so hopefully you can sort of see slowly but surely what kind of effect that's having. And it's it's exactly the same technique we used on the other parts of her clothing. It's just with the leather boot it's even more important because we can't have very fine folds on this one. I mean, you can actually put scratches in at this stage if you'd like to, but generally for scratches and everything else like that, I tend to like to leave that to Substance Painter these days. There was a time when I would actually put sort of scratches and stuff like that in ZBrush, but because it can potentially conflict where you put them in Substance Painter. Generally speaking, I just tend to leave it up to Substance Painter these days, okay, to handle, but of course you can choose to do what you prefer to do. And I think, don't save ZBrush, I'm going to use a damn standard brush, just going to create a few sharp, whoa, that's too strong, few sharp sort of lines here, just to keep in the same spirit almost as the rest of the boot, even though it's pretty round here. This is probably the only super smooth round part of this particular style of shoe. Okay. And I think the toe could do with being trimmed down a bit. Strangely enough. Okay. And maybe let's just kind of trim it down either side, smooth it out. Yeah, that's a bit better. Okay. And let's go back to our inflate brush technique and we'll just stipple that around. Just create some sort of uneven surface. Bit of a worn, beaten look to the leather. Okay. Right, okay, I think the only thing I want to change now is actually the shape of the heel. I want to bring the heel a bit more forward. So you see that heel there's actually quite a bit forward. It's actually quite forward over here. So I think I will just take a leaf out of that book and actually bring the heel quite far forward. Same on this side, bring that quite far forward, bring it out a bit, something like that. Okay, so that looks a bit more in line and in keeping with styles of shoes. Maybe bring the heel shape up there a bit more. Okay. Same on this side, bring that up a bit more. And what we can do here, now that the shape has been changed, we can actually bring that fall we were creating earlier, and we'll just mask off the top part so we don't affect that, but basically do like an overhang a little bit of this area. So we'll use the move brush. We won't use a standard brush, we'll just kind of pull it out a little bit. Give it a chance to sort of flare out. And any other part that's clipping through the heel, we can just sort of push that back in. Okay, like so. Okay, so I think at the moment I'm quite happy where the boot is. I'm not going to call it done just yet because I think you know, it looks alright, it looks okay, and you could sort of argue it looks a bit too fabric-y. Maybe I went a little bit overboard with the stippling, but I think it's better to have that kind of effect, I think, rather than to not at all. But maybe be a bit more cautious about how much you use the effect, and don't kind of make the same mistake I did there. Although having said that, it may translate a little bit better when we come to start baking the normals. I'd rather have detail there than have a lack of detail, so I'll always go for that over a lack of detail in any one direction. Okay, let's see, final little tweaks and adjustments. I just want to, it's a bit picky of me, but I just want to kind of put that in there a bit. There we go. That's better. That changes the whole look of the shoe for me. Okay. Just a little something. Maybe bring that out a bit more. Something like that. Okay. Right. I think we'll spend maybe... Well, we'll do one more video. We'll kind of put this kind of heel and shoe in there. I quite like the look of that, even though our concept art lacks any of that, but it lacks that because I didn't have an idea at the time. But I do kind of like the way these boots look here, so I will probably try and put some kind of pattern in there and just to sort of give the boots a bit more of a style to them rather than just looking very basic. Okay. I think, yeah, that looks pretty good so far. I'm happy with where the boots are at now. I wouldn't call it final, but yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.